Chapter 1173. Chu Luiyue didn't expect him to ask this question. She couldn't help but be taken aback. This technique? When she made her move earlier, she didn't think much about it. She just instinctively swung her fist. Now that she thought about it, Debao seemed to have taught her fist technique when she was fighting with those puppets. Because most of her attention was on how to deal with the puppets, she didn't pay much attention to it. Why did Elder Wanzheng suddenly ask this? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and answered, I learned it from a senior. What senior? Elder Wanzheng continued to ask. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. Judging from Elder Wanzheng's reaction, could it be that he knew Debao? However, Debao had never mentioned his identity before, nor had he mentioned Elder Wanzheng and the others. Chu Luiyue couldn't tell what his background was and how he was related to Elder Wanzheng. It's a senior I met by chance. Chu Luiyue said slowly. I've sparred with him before, so I learned these moves along the way. You? Sparred with him? Elder Wanzheng asked in an inexplicable tone. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She felt that Elder Wanzheng's gaze could see through her. Where is he now? Chu Luiyue shook her head. I don't know. She really didn't know. Although Debao said that they would meet in the academy, there wasn't even a trace of him. After entering the academy, she didn't have the time to look for him. Moreover, because she didn't know his identity, she didn't dare to make a big fuss. You don't know? Elder Wanzheng obviously didn't believe her. He stared at the young man in front of him for a long time, but he couldn't figure out anything. This caused his originally firm belief to waver a little. You really don't know? Chu Luiyue sighed softly. I really don't know. The room fell silent for a moment. Elder Wanzheng sighed. He's willing to teach you this fist technique. It's obvious that he thinks highly of you. His tone seemed to be nostalgic. Judging from his tone, he didn't seem to be hostile. Chu Luiyue thought in her heart and asked cautiously. Master, do you know him? Elder Wanzheng was startled. Soon after, he laughed bitterly. You could say that. Chu Luiyue was even more confused. What do you mean? Sort of? You brat, your luck is pretty good. Elder Wanzheng looked at her with a complicated gaze. There seemed to be something moving in his eyes. Chu Luiyue spoke after some deliberation. To be able to receive guidance from that senior, this student also feels honored. Elder Wanzheng nodded, then shook his head and smiled. No wonder. As an early stage of the 7th step, you were actually able to defeat Lu Ziyan. With that person's guidance, what was a mere Lu Ziyan? Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. Elder Wanzheng suddenly smiled helplessly. If I had known about this earlier, I might not have accepted you as my disciple back then. Master, what do you mean? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Elder Wanzheng looked at her meaningfully. You hid your talent as a martial artist, didn't you? Chu Luiyue laughed. Master is joking. If your talent isn't enough, you definitely won't be able to invite him to teach you. He has always hated stupid people the most. Elder Wanzheng waved his hand. Chu Luiyue recalled the days she spent with Debao, and 2 streams of hot tears welled up in her heart. That's true. Even someone like her couldn't avoid being despised by Debao all the time, let alone others. Although I don't know why you are only at the early stage of the 7th step, your combat strength is not bad. Your future potential is limitless, and you have a lot of potential. Elder Wanzheng patted Chu Luiyue's shoulder. Don't mention this to anyone for the time being. However, if Elder Bo Yen and the rest ask you, just answer truthfully. Chu Luiyue nodded. This student understands. If you have time in the future, go to the martial artist's side to learn more. Don't fall behind. Elder Wanzheng's reminder made Chu Luiyue feel that it was a little strange. This meant that if you meet that person in the future and are criticized for not being strong enough, don't say that I didn't give you time to cultivate. Elder Wanzheng tried his best to defend himself. If he had known that Chu Yu had caught the eye of that person, he wouldn't have snatched him to be his disciple. However, he was in a difficult position now, and this child was indeed very talented in celestial physician. He really couldn't bear to give up. Therefore, he could only use this compromise. Chu Luiyue was speechless. She vaguely felt that Elder Wanzheng seemed to be respectful towards Debao. His tone and demeanor were not normal at all. She paused for a moment and asked tentatively, Master, that person, is he also an elder of the academy? Elder Wanzheng looked at her with a strange expression. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Why do I feel like I'm being looked down on? It's fine if you don't know. If there is a chance in the future, you will know. Elder Wanzheng sighed. Where's your black jade token? Chu Luiwei took it out and handed it over. Elder Wanzheng took out his green jade token. A stream of light flew out from his token and entered Chu Luiwei's token. Chu Luiwei saw that the points on his token had suddenly increased by 100,000. This is a small gift from me to you. These points are enough to support you for 2 to 3 months. When you break through to the 9th grade celestial physician, I will naturally reward you. Of course, the faster you can get on the Qingyun roll, the more rewards you will receive. As he spoke, Elder Wanjing handed over an ancient book. In this medical book, there are prescriptions for 9th grade medicinal pills. During this period of time, study it well and strive to break through as soon as possible. If you lack any herbs, just use your points to exchange for them at the Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Liwei took it with both hands. Thank you, Master. Elder Wanjing nodded and asked again. By the way, how were you in Pengmin Mountain for the past few days? How was it? Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 1174. Chu Luiwei wanted to say that she was doing well there and even wanted to go there again. But in the end, her rationality still made her swallow these words. She lowered her head slightly. It's only right for a student to be punished for her mistakes. Seeing her like this, Elder Wanzheng couldn't bear to reprimand her. Since this matter is over, let's forget about it and let bygones be bygones. Thousand Wine Mountain isn't a place where students can enter as they wish. Don't do this again, understand? Chu Luiwei answered obediently. Thank you for your guidance, Master. Elder Wanjing nodded in satisfaction. All right, go back and study the prescription in this book. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. After that, he gave Chu Luiwei a few more instructions and let her leave. Who is Debao? On the way back, Chu Luiwei kept thinking about this question. Judging from Elder Wanzheng's attitude, Debao's status should be quite high. After all, he was a divine-level expert who had forged a divine body. Even in the entire Lingxiao College, he should be an extremely powerful existence. Perhaps she should ask Debao the next time she saw him. She quickly returned to her residence. Zhong Sun was already waiting at the door. When he saw her return, his face lit up. Junior Chuyu, how are you? Did Elder Wanjing do anything to you? Chu Luiwei laughed. He's my master. Of course he wouldn't do anything to me. Senior Zhong Sun, you worry too much. Zhong Sun scratched his head in embarrassment. I was just anxious. After all, when Elder Wanjing brought you away, he didn't look too good. That didn't seem like a good thing. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and said, with a disciple like me who causes trouble as soon as she arrives, it's inevitable that Master will have a headache. There was no way to refute this. Even Zhong Sun had to admit that Chu Luiwei was really good at causing trouble. How long had she been here and she had already caused so much trouble? You still know? Anyway, your name has already spread in the Lingxiao College. Many people are waiting to see you and Lu Yintong fight. Chu Luiwei chuckled and walked towards his courtyard. What's there to see? She bullied you so much, are you going to let it go just like that? Zhong Sun felt a little strange. I thought you said you wanted her to accompany you to Wanjiu Mountain for a month on purpose. I did it on purpose. However, it wasn't just to vent my anger. Chu Luiwei looked lazy. She's only ranked in the 40s on the Ascension rankings, but there are numerous people that want to go to Myriad Wine Mountain, and there's no lack of people that are as formidable as her or even stronger. Even if I bring her black feather token with me, I'm afraid some people won't give me face. What should I do then? I don't want to offend more people. Therefore, it was most appropriate to bring her along. Not only would he be able to hold his head high and take her down a notch, but he would also be able to pull her to the front when there was an unexpected situation. Why wouldn't he do it? Zhong Sun's expression changed slightly, and then he slowly raised his thumb. You are ruthless enough. After today's incident, Everyone thought that Chu Yu did this to take revenge on Lu Yintong. However, Chu Yu was actually doing it for Myriad Wine Mountain. From the beginning to the end, his goal was never Lu Yintong. However, no matter what, Lu Yintong is still an extremely powerful genius on the Ascension rankings. I heard that she has been diligently cultivating a martial technique recently, wanting to break through her own strength. If she really succeeds, then charging into the top 40 isn't impossible. At that time, Chu Luiwei stood still, tilted his head, and asked with interest, "Is the top 40 very powerful?" Zhong Sun was stunned. Seeing the casual look of the youth opposite him, his heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously thought that the other party was comparing Lu Yintong to Luo Yanlin. The top 40 is quite powerful. Of course, compared to Luo Yanlin, it's still a lot worse. Chu Yu, you also know that relying on others is ultimately better than relying on yourself, right? Luo Yanlin could help once, but he couldn't help every time, right? Chu Luiwei pressed a hand on the door and was about to open it when he suddenly stopped. "Thank you, senior brother Zhong Sun." She turned around and said seriously. Zhong Sun relaxed a little and smiled. "Anyway, it's fine as long as you know what you're doing. With your talent, it won't be long before you can enter the Ascension rankings. It's not impossible for you to catch up in the future. Junior brother has been busy for so long, it's time for you to have a good rest. I won't disturb you anymore." Chu Luiwei nodded slightly. Zhong Sun quickly left. Chu Luiwei pushed the door and entered. She carefully locked the door. "Your troublemaking personality really hasn't changed at all." A cold but soft voice came from behind. Although the tone was as cold and dignified as possible, it was a pity that the voice was too childish, and it sounded especially out of character. Instead, it made people want to rush up and ravage him, mess up his hair, and pinch his little face. Chu Luiwei held back her laughter and turned around. In the room, who was sitting upright and obediently, if it wasn't Dugu Mabao who she hadn't seen for a long time? Today, he was still wearing the same purple brocade clothes, and his chubby and fair little face was no different from before. Chu Luiwei's hand suddenly felt a little itchy. Then, she met Dugu Mabao's pair of magnificent and bewitching eyes. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Dugu Mabao seemed to have seen through her thoughts, and his expression gradually became dangerous. A faint chill spread out from his body. "Cough." Chu Luiwei hurriedly coughed and walked forward. "Dabao, where have you been before? Why are you only here now?" He was still talking about it just now, and now he appeared. It was really, Dugu Mabao sneered. "If you weren't locked up in Mount Pengmin, would I have to wait for you for so long?" Chu Luiwei suddenly felt guilty. "I didn't do it on purpose." She didn't explain too much, because she had an inexplicable feeling that Dabao should know about this. As expected, Dabao didn't ask too much and only frowned. "If you had broken through earlier, your strength wouldn't have been so tyrannical, and you wouldn't have been bullied so wantonly." "Still too weak." Chu Luiwei was speechless. She knew that he wouldn't be able to say anything else. They had just met, and the topic was brought up again. She rubbed her eyebrows, wanting to defend herself. "I want to become stronger, but I need time. Could it be that I can continue to break through and directly become a god-level powerhouse?" Dugu Mabao glanced at her coldly. Chu Luiwei said, "I'll work hard." "It's good that you know." Dugu Mabao let her go. "Since you're already in the academy, you should seize the time and opportunity to cultivate well." Chu Luiwei looked at him, suddenly leaned closer, and asked curiously, "Dabao, today, Elder Wanjing saw that I used the fist technique you taught me, and he even asked about you." Dugu Mabao's expression didn't change. "Don't worry about him. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 1175. Chu Luiwei. "But he's my master now. It's not good not to tell him, right? He won't ask too much." Dugu Mabao was calm and composed as he spoke with great certainty. "You can just say whatever you want and send him away." "Chu Luiwei, that's Elder Wanzheng. How can you send him away just like that?" Chu Luiwei became more and more certain of her guess. She gritted her teeth and asked secretly. Debao, your status is higher than Elder Wan Zheng's, isn't it? Dugu Mabao glanced at her as if he was looking at a fool. Chu Liwei obediently swallowed the rest of her words. Fine. Damn it. I shouldn't have asked that question. How was it in Mount Pingmen? Dugu Mabao suddenly changed the topic and asked casually. Chu Liwei leaned against the chair and rested her chin on one hand. In front of Dugu Mabao, there was no need for her to hide these things. She said very honestly, it was pretty good. No, it was very good. She touched her chin. I think I can go there a few more times. If others heard this, they would probably think that Chu Liwei had gone crazy. However, Dugu Mabao didn't say anything. He just lowered his eyes slightly. His thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly, hiding the emotions in his eyes. What do you mean? He asked faintly. Chu Liwei briefly told him what happened in Mount Pingmen. Anyway, when I was cultivating there, it was very smooth. It seemed to be more. Chu Liwei paused. For a moment, she didn't know how to describe that feeling. Convenient? Comfortable? She couldn't say. She had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and her ability to devour the heaven and earth force was extremely strong. However, when she was inside, the heaven and earth force was vast and majestic, but it was exceptionally gentle. When it entered her body, it didn't take much effort for her to completely integrate into her own strength. She had never felt this way before. Is there something special about that place? Was that why the origin power inside was different from the outside world? Chu Liwei looked at Dugu Mabao. Debao, what do you think? Even though Elder Wan Zheng said that he wasn't an elder of the academy, Chu Liwei thought that he should have a close relationship with Lingxiao College. Then, perhaps he knew more about Pingmen Mountain? Pingmen Mountain's 7 pagodas are a special existence in the academy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be one of the places where severe punishments are carried out. Dugu Mabao's tone was indifferent, as if he had no interest in this. Your experiences. There's nothing strange about them. Chu Liwei nodded thoughtfully, but there was still one thing he did not understand. Since it's a punishment, I should feel terrible after going in. Why is it the opposite? Dugu Mabao raised his eyes and asked in a calm voice. When did you become like a normal person? Chu Liwei was speechless. For a moment, she couldn't refute. Her cultivation experience was indeed different from that of ordinary people. Maybe I'm fated with Pingmen Mountain? She muttered in a low voice. To be precise, she was fated with the space behind that door. She had chosen the same thing twice in a row. If she went there again, would she still choose the same thing? As soon as this dangerous thought appeared, Chu Liwei forcibly suppressed it. She came to the academy to cultivate diligently, not to cause trouble. You're about to break through to the middle of the 7th level? Dugu Mabao looked at her again. Chu Liwei laughed. Yes. I thought that it might not be so fast, but I didn't expect that after cultivating in Pingmen Mountain for 10 days, my progress would be so fast. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before she could officially break through. Dugu Mabao waved his small hand, and a chessboard with a faint glow appeared between the two. In that case, let's continue the game from last time. This time, Chu Liwei took the most steps ever since she played chess with Dugu Mabao. Of course, in the end, she was still exhausted and almost exhausted. However, perhaps because he knew that she had experienced a lot today, Dugu Mabao quickly let her go. Looking at the completely dark sky outside, Debao stood up and flew down from the chair. Chu Liwei asked in surprise. Debao, you leaving? Dugu Mabao didn't look back and nodded slightly. You just have to stay here and cultivate properly. Where are you going? At this point, Chu Liwei suddenly remembered that she hadn't asked him where he had been all this time. If he was also in the academy, then, I have a place to go. Dugu Mabao's answer was extremely simple, and it was obvious that he had no intention of continuing. This time tomorrow, I'll be here again. Chu Liwei hurriedly called out to him, Hey, Debao, I won't be here at this time tomorrow. Dugu Mabao turned around and frowned. What do you mean? Actually, I'll be going out later. For the next month, I won't be staying here at night. Dugu Mabao suddenly understood something, and his devilish purple eyes narrowed dangerously. You? Are going to Thousand Wine Mountain? Chu Luiwen nodded honestly. It wasn't easy to win the bet, of course I can't give it up. She had already offended Lu Yintong, wouldn't it be a great loss if she didn't go? Dugu Mabao snorted coldly. Or is it because of that red-tailed phoenix? As soon as he finished speaking, Dumpling ran out and squatted on Chu Liyue's shoulder. It shook its wings and nodded vigorously with a face full of pride. Of course. Dugu Mabao looked at it coldly. Even if you don't go, as your strength increases, the bloodline in its body will gradually be stimulated. Chu Liyue wasn't surprised that Dugu Mabao knew about this. She shrugged and smiled. I know, but since I have this opportunity, I don't want to give it up. If I break through to the divine level, who knows how long I'll have to wait? Dugu Mabao frowned slightly. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. Actually, it might not take too long, but he couldn't tell her this. Since you've made up your mind, then so be it. But, Dugu Mabao paused. You're not allowed to stay in Thousand Wine Mountain during the forbidden period. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. She chuckled. I've been locked up once, there won't be a second time. Dugu Mabao looked at her with a heavy gaze. Chu Liyue suddenly had an idea. Debao, you know the secret of the spring on Thousand Wine Mountain, don't you? Dugu Mabao didn't say anything. Then why don't you tell me? Ahem, I'm joking. Chu Liyue was halfway through her sentence when she tactfully stopped. Dugu Mabao turned and walked outside. Chu Liyue didn't give up and asked. Debao, tell me if I really make a big mistake in the academy, or if I offend someone powerful, this little life of mine. Dugu Mabao stopped in his tracks. With me around, no one can take your life. Besides, he sneered. Rong Xiu isn't an idiot. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1176. Chu Liyue was a little surprised. She did not expect him to mention Rong Xiu all of a sudden. Moreover, why did his words sound so strange? However, it's one thing for you to have a backer. It's another thing for you to not court death. Dugu Mabao opened the door. Although you can't continue most of your previous training in Lingxiao College, I'll still personally teach you when I'm free. With that, he took a step forward. In the next moment, that small figure disappeared into the thick night sky. Hey you! Chu Liyue came back to her senses and rubbed the space between her eyebrows. She could almost imagine what kind of days awaited her in the future. She picked up Dumpling and walked out. Let's go. While we're still free, let's go wander around to our heart's content. Thousand Wine Mountain. Thousand Wine Mountain opened from evening to early morning. At this time, many students had already gathered at Thousand Wine Mountain. However, compared to the day before, there were much fewer people. For most of the students in the college, Thousand Wine Mountain was a place for entertainment. It was good to come once in a while, but there was no need to come every day. Moreover, Chu Liyue and Lu Yintong's matter had caused a stir recently. Many people were afraid and did not want to cause trouble, so they did not come. As soon as Chu Liyue arrived at Thousand Wine Mountain, she attracted everyone's attention. Countless pairs of eyes fell on her with different expressions. However, Chu Liyue turned a blind eye to it and walked straight up. She finally stopped when she was about to reach the top of the mountain. At this time, the space beside the spring was almost full. Lu Yintong's figure did not appear among them. Chu Liyue looked at a young man beside her. Senior Sister Lu is not here today? It was obvious who Senior Sister Lu was referring to. The young man was stunned for a moment and nodded subconsciously. I didn't see her. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. It seemed that Lu Yintong did not take her words to heart. It was already so late, but he still hadn't come. She could wait, but Dumpling didn't have the patience. Chu Liyue stood in place and waited for about 15 minutes before Lu Yintong finally arrived. Gong Xing, who had been with her that day, also came with her. Senior Lu, you've made me wait for a long time. Chu Liyue was the first to speak with a smile. After seeing Chu Liyue, Lu Yintong's expression, which had finally calmed down, changed again. However, the gazes of the people around her made her swallow her words. Something came up at the last minute. she said impatiently, her tone cold. Chu Luiwei didn't intend to waste time blaming her. He smiled. Senior apprentice Sister Lu is a busy person. It's already very difficult for her to make time. Please. Lu Yintong gritted her teeth. This was only the first day, and she already felt humiliated. She really didn't know how she was going to endure the next month. However, she had already made a promise in front of so many people. If she went back on her word, her reputation in the academy would be ruined. Therefore, no matter how uncomfortable it was, she had to continue. She took a deep breath and looked at the top of the mountain. When she saw the faces of those people, her expression changed slightly. Why are they here today? When Chu Luiwei saw her expression, an idea popped up in her mind. She also looked over and quickly sized up the few people. There were men and women, and they were all dressed in luxurious clothes. They seemed to be the children of aristocratic families. Most importantly, the aura around those people was not much weaker than Lu Yintong's. Moreover, judging from Lu Yintong's expression, those people might be stronger than her. Senior Lu, is there a problem? Chu Luiwei asked gently. Lu Yintong slowly clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. He still has the nerve to ask. But at this moment, she had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue. She turned her head, lowered her voice, and said word by word, 1 month later, we'll settle this score properly. The threat and warning in her words were undisguised. Chu Luiwei's face showed a trace of guilt. Originally, I thought that if Senior Lu felt that it was difficult, then I would temporarily forget about today. But since Senior Lu said that there's no problem, then I will naturally accept. As she said that, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Senior Lu, you're a woman of your word. You're really a role model for our generation. Chu Luiwei didn't lower her voice when she said these 2 sentences, so quite a few people around her heard them clearly. For a moment, the atmosphere became strange. Lu Yintong didn't expect that she would dare to play such a trick in front of so many people. Her expression almost collapsed. You, Tong. Just as Lu Yintong was about to explode, Gong Sheng suddenly spoke, pulling her back to her senses. We still have other things to do later. Let's deal with junior brother Chu Yu's problem as soon as possible. Otherwise, junior brother Chu Yu will suspect that you forgot again. As Gong Sheng spoke, he looked meaningfully at Chu Luiwei. Although he was smiling, his words were filled with undisguised sarcasm. He wasn't present during the day, but he had heard everything from Lu Yintong. Although he was shocked that a rank 7 warrior like Chu Luiwei was able to defeat Lu Ziyan, who was an entire rank higher, he still felt contempt and disdain for Chu Luiwei. In his opinion, there was a problem with Chu Luiwei's victory. He must have used some underhanded method. In addition, he later asked Lu Yintong to send him tens of thousands of wine mountains for a month. In his heart, he hated Chu Luiwei even more. Chu Luiwei didn't care about this at all. No matter what they said, as long as what needed to be done was done, nothing else mattered. Thus, she replied with a smile, Senior brother Gong Sheng is right. My memory has always been bad. In the next month, I hope that senior sister Lu will forgive me. Lu Yintong's chest seemed to have a ball of flames surging crazily, almost burning her to ashes. Without saying a word, she lifted her foot and walked up. Gong Sheng followed closely behind. When he passed by Chu Luiwei, he stopped in his tracks and looked sideways at Chu Luiwei deeply. You have guts. He still had a smile on his face, but the words that came out of his mouth were cold and sinister, making people shudder. Chu Luiwei chuckled. Thank you for your praise, senior brother Gong Sheng. Gong Sheng took a deep breath, turned around, and quickly followed Lu Yintong. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows and slowly walked over. Lu Yintong came to the spring at the top of the mountain. The few people who were already standing there heard the commotion and turned their heads to look. Lu Yintong stood still, took a deep breath, and said politely, Liang Xiaoxiao, is there another seat here? Can I? No. A delicately dressed woman interrupted her and said lazily, That's right. There's already someone here. He should be here soon. If you want to come, you should come early tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1177. Liang Xiaoxiao was very direct. Obviously, she did not intend to give Lu Yintong any face. This was because she was ranked 39th on the warrior leaderboard. Much higher than Lu Yintong. One had to know that the competition on the Qingyun leaderboard was very fierce. Every time one moved up a rank, it meant that one's strength was much stronger than the previous one. Lu Yintong naturally did not dare to offend Liang Xiaoxiao. Of course, there was another reason. Liang Xiaoxiao was born in a first-rate family, much more powerful than Lu Yintong's second-rate family background. Even though everyone in the academy rarely talked about this matter, it didn't mean that they could really ignore this matter. After all, they would not stay in the academy forever. In the future, when they left the academy, they would have to face these problems if they wanted to survive in the realm of God. If he offended someone with a strong background here, his future days would not be easy. Therefore, the arrogant Lu Yintong did not get angry when she was given the cold shoulder. In fact, the expression on her face became even more courteous. I wonder who that person is? I can use points to exchange with him. Liang Xiaoxiao seemed to have heard a joke. She suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. Points? Do we look like people who lack those things? Her tone was light as if she was teasing, but to Lu Yintong, it was very harsh. It was not that Liang Xiaoxiao and the others did not lack points. In Lingxiao College, the importance of points was self-evident. No one would complain about having more points. But relatively speaking, they did not need to exchange such things for points. It was embarrassing. These words were indeed mocking Lu Yintong. Lu Yintong was also in a dilemma. Who would have thought that she would meet this group of people on the first day? Normally, they wouldn't come here, but for some reason, they actually came together today. Moreover, they took all the seats and did not give her any chance at all. She did not want to offend these people, but there was still the aggressive Chuyu behind her. Just as Lu Yintong was thinking about how to speak again, Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up and she waved behind Lu Yintong. Xion, come quickly. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Hearing this, everyone present turned to look at him. Lu Yintong's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly turned around. When she saw who it was, her face turned ugly. Jianghu. The person that Liang Xiaoxiao said didn't come was her? Jiang Ziyuan's movements were light as she floated down. Under the moonlight, there was a sense of ethereal immortality. The crowd was silent for a moment, and many people's eyes flashed with surprise. Jiang Jiwan didn't seem to notice these gazes at all. She walked straight towards them and said with a faint smile, "I'm sorry for being late. I was going to come just now, but I comprehended something at the last minute, so I'm late." Liang Xiaoxiao smiled enchantingly. Another breakthrough? Jiang Jiwan blushed and shook her head. Not so fast. Then it's still fast. Liang Xiaoxiao and the others looked at each other. Look at you, didn't you just break through not long ago? In the blink of an eye, he was about to break through again. If this goes on, all of us will be completely defeated by you. I won't play with you anymore. That's right. Ziyuan, when you're cultivating, you should consider other people's feelings. My heart is about to be shattered into pieces by you. Ren Ziyuan is going to chase after senior brother Rongxiu. How can you compare to her? The last young man's unintentional words caused the originally noisy and lively atmosphere to instantly turn stiff and cold. The smile on Jiang Jiwan's face froze for a moment and then faded a lot. Liang Xiaoxiao glared at the man who didn't know what to say. Senior brother Rongxiu's strength is tyrannical. Of the 4 rankings of the Azure Sky role, he has taken first place in 2. Who in the academy doesn't have him as their goal? What's there to say? The man hurriedly said, Yes, yes. I also have the same idea. However, senior brother Rongxiu is a rare top genius. Ordinary people can't be compared to him, right? Jiang Jiwan said indifferently, He is naturally the most powerful. How can I be compared to him? Everyone looked at each other, and the atmosphere was very awkward. Who in the academy didn't know that Jiang Jiwan was infatuated with Rongxiu? Although Rongxiu had already left when she entered the academy and rarely came back, everyone was well aware of her relationship with Rongxiu. Everyone thought that she would be Rong Xiu's princess consort. Who knew? Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes turned, and there was a natural seductive look in her eyes. What's the point of saying all that? Xion, you haven't been to Thousand Wine Mountain for a long time, right? Come quickly. This spring water seems to be sweeter than before. Jianghu forced a smile and was about to walk over when she saw Lu Yintong standing at the side. A trace of disgust flashed across her eyes. Lu Yintong? Why you here? Lu Yintong secretly thought that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. She actually bumped into Jianghu. It was also her fault for being too careless. Liang Xiaoxiao and the others had always been close to Jianghu. When she saw them just now, she should have thought of this. If she left immediately, it would seem that she was guilty. Isn't Thousand Wine Mountain a place where everyone can come? Lu Yintong asked. Jianghu's lips twitched without a smile. That's true. Then, please go ahead. With that, she lifted her feet and walked forward, not even looking at her. It was as if she didn't care about Lu Yintong at all. Lu Yintong was secretly angry and turned to leave. But after taking a few steps, she was stopped by someone. Senior Sister Lu, where are you going? Chu Luiyue stood in front of her and raised an arm to block her way. You haven't fulfilled your promise to me yet. Lu Yintong was very annoyed. Let's call it a day. We'll talk about it tomorrow. With that, she was about to force her way out. However, Chu Luiyue held her back tightly and didn't give her a chance to move forward. Senior Sister Lu, I'm really sorry. I don't want to wait until tomorrow. If you continue to push it to the day after tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow. What's the point of this bet? Lu Yintong gritted her teeth. I said tomorrow. Chu Luiyue's eyes moved back and forth between her and Jianghu. It seemed that the two of them had a deep grudge. She didn't expect to meet them so directly today. There were several people on the other side and they seemed to be very confident. No wonder Lu Yintong wanted to leave. If she stayed, wouldn't she be humiliated for nothing? However, Chu Luiyue didn't intend to care about this. She only wanted Lu Yintong to fulfill her promise. Senior Sister Lu, I also said that I don't want to wait until tomorrow. Chu Luiyue's tone became more serious. At this moment, Liang Xiaoxiao's coquettish laughter suddenly sounded. Hey, Lu Yintong, have you fallen to the point where you're threatened by junior brother? I remember how glorious it was when you confessed to senior brother Rong Xiu in public. How did it end up like this? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1178. Liang Xiaoxia. Lu Yintong was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Her hair stood on end and she could no longer hold it in. She let out a sharp cry. Don't forget that I'm still your senior sister. Show some respect. Senior sister? Liang Xiaoxiao's smile blossomed. You entered the academy half a year earlier than us, but your strength is far behind our senior sister? Her words were full of sarcasm. Lu Yintong's face was red with anger. There seemed to be flames burning in her eyes. These people, they're too much. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. Confess. In public? It seems like Rong Xiu is quite popular in the academy. No wonder the atmosphere between Lu Yintong and Jianghu is so strange. When rivals meet, their eyes will be exceptionally red. They must have fought several times in public and in secret. However, Lu Yintong was obviously at a disadvantage now. The other party had the advantage in numbers and was stronger than her. It was normal for her to be humiliated like this. Shusha. Jianghu spoke as if she wanted to make peace. That's all in the past. Why bring it up again? Anyway, the person standing next to Rong Xiu was not either of them. Jianghu had long known that there were countless people in the academy who had a crush on Rong Xiu. If she were to target each and every one of them, she would have been exhausted. The reason why she was in such a mess with Lu Yintong was because the bird that stuck its head out would be shot. There were so many people who liked Rong Xiu, but most of them did not even dare to say a word to him. However, Lu Yintong confessed to Rong Xiu in public. This matter was so big that Jianghu had been brooding over it. Although Rong Xiu did not even look at Lu Yintong at that time, it had happened. Jiang Jiwan could not get over it. What was even more ridiculous was that Rong Xiu had said something to Lu Yintong. He said he already had someone he liked. These words were not only for Lu Yintong, but also for the other girls in the academy who were ready to make a move. After Lu Yintong found out, she thought it was Jiang Jiwan, so she went to Jiang Jiwan's place to make a fuss. Thus, the two of them became enemies. Even after Rong Xiu left the academy, there was still a deep gap between the two of them. Every time they met, they would fall into this kind of awkward situation. It was fine at first, but as time passed, Jiang Jiwan caught up and gradually surpassed Lu Yintong. Because of the rumors about her relationship with Rong Xiu, many people in the academy wanted to befriend her. Jiang Jiwan's strength had increased greatly, and she had expanded her network. She quickly crushed Lu Yintong. As a result, Lu Yintong's days in the academy gradually became difficult. Even though Jiang Ziyuan didn't finish her sentence, everyone could tell that she didn't care about Lu Yintong at all from her nonchalant attitude. Liang Xiaoxiao laughed coquettishly. "Oh, since you said so, then, Senior Lu, I won't see you out." Lu Yintong's expression turned stern. She was about to retort when Gong Sheng pulled her back. There was a rare look of worry on his usually cynical face. "Tong, bear with it for a while." They were indeed no match for those people now. Lu Yintong shook off his hand. "I can walk on my own." However, she had just taken half a step when she heard Jiang Jiwan's voice behind her. "There's nothing to be angry about. There's no need to lose your dignity for such people." Hearing this, the suppressed anger in Lu Yintong's heart finally exploded. She turned around angrily and walked back quickly. Gong Sheng saw that her expression was not right and quickly pulled her back. "Tong." Lu Yintong quickly dodged, not even letting him touch her. Sensing that Lu Yintong was going back on her words, Liang Xiaoxiao and the others looked back. "Jiang Jiwan." Lu Yintong stood still and stared at Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Jiwan frowned slightly. Lu Yintong sneered. "Who do you think you are? Do you think Rong Xiu really cares about you? The academy has already spread the news that Rong Xiu already has a princess. And that person isn't you at all. You've always thought of yourself as the future princess of Yuntian Tower, but in the end, you didn't even get the status of a concubine, did you?" Her words were spoken quickly and anxiously, like a string of cannons flying out, not giving anyone time to react. Jiang Jiwan's expression finally changed. "Lu Yintong, you're presumptuous." Lu Yintong sneered. "I'm presumptuous? Who do you think you are to speak to me in such a manner?" In terms of background, the Tomb of Immortal Water is just one of the many tribes that rely on Yuntian Tower. At most, you're a second-rate family. In terms of seniority, you entered the academy later than me. Don't you understand the principle of seniority? In terms of strength, your ranking on the warrior rankings is indeed higher than mine, but I'm famous on both rankings. If we really compare, I might not be much worse than you. Even the princess of Yuntian Tower hasn't come to criticize me. You think you can?" Slap. Jiang Jiwan finally couldn't hold back and directly raised her hand to slap Lu Yintong. Her combat strength was higher than Lu Yintong's, so Lu Yintong couldn't dodge the slap. There was dead silence all around. Chu Luiyue touched his chin with interest, half smiling. A certain someone's absence could still cause such a huge commotion. Really, Jiang Jiwan? Gong Sheng immediately stepped forward and blocked Lu Yintong, his brows tightly knitted. "You're too much." Jiang Jiwan regretted it after she slapped Lu Yintong. She had always maintained a good image in the outside world. Who would have thought that she would hit Lu Yintong in the heat of the moment? Many gazes fell on her. Her eyes quickly turned red, and her expression was full of grievance. "I don't have the right. If he doesn't like it, the promise of elders and childhood sweethearts are all in vain. If he likes it, even if it's someone from the outside world, he wouldn't mind. What am I?" With that, she stomped her feet and quickly left. "Hey!" Liang Xiaoxiao shouted and anxiously said to the people around her. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase after her." The few of them quickly followed her. Liang Xiaoxiao walked a few steps, then looked back at Lu Yintong. We'll remember today's score. With that, her figure quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Lu Yintong's face turned pale. Only then did she realize what she had just done. Chu Luiwei crossed her arms, her slender fingers tapping lightly, the tip of her brows raised slightly. Was she slandering her in front of everyone? Digression. It's the end of the month, the various stars haven't appeared yet. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1179. There was dead silence. Because of this sudden commotion, the originally lively mountain became cold and silent. Many people looked at each other with different expressions. The words that Jiang Jiwan said just now. There was too much information. An agreement between elders, childhood sweethearts? Didn't that mean that she and Rong Xiu were engaged by their elders a long time ago? It was only because someone snatched her away that they didn't get together? And the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower was actually an outsider? Although Elder Bo Yen and the others already knew about the news from the Yuntian Tower, it wasn't spread. Many people in the academy didn't know about it. That was why they were so shocked when they heard it. Gradually, the crowd started to talk about it. I heard that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower had a mysterious background. I didn't expect her to be an outsider. Let alone senior brother Rong Xiu. Such a person isn't even qualified to be with a third-rate family in the Divine Ruins world, right? TSK, I really don't know what senior brother Rong Xiu is thinking. Did he reject his engagement with Jiang Jiwan and marry another woman? Jiang Jiwan and senior brother Rong Xiu don't have an engagement, right? If they did, according to her personality, she would have announced it long ago. Even if they didn't, it should be about the same. After all, she was raised in the Yuntian Tower by their clan leader since she was young. It's obvious that she's being groomed to be the future princess consort of the Yuntian Tower. Unfortunately, I'm a little curious. I wonder what kind of woman could catch the eye of senior brother Rong Xiu? Everyone was talking. Chu Luiwei turned a deaf ear to them and walked to the mouth of the spring. Well, no matter what, everyone had left, leaving a big empty space. Dumpling flew down and stood on a rock beside the mouth of the spring. It lowered its head and drank. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people around, it would have already charged in. Chu Luiwei smiled when he saw how happy it was. He looked up at Lu Yintong. Senior sister Lu, many thanks. If it wasn't for Lu Yintong, things would have been a little tricky. Her voice brought Lu Yintong back to her senses. She raised her head subconsciously. Lu Yintong's heart sank when she saw the smiling young man standing beside the spring. He did it on purpose. This Chu Yu, he clearly did it on purpose. He must have expected that there would be a fight over the position next to the mouth of the spring, so he deliberately brought her along. She had become his target. She had offended those people for him. In the future, even if they pursued the matter, those people would only find trouble with her. As for Chu Yu, he had obtained all the benefits and could still sit back and relax. Lu Yintong wanted to explode. She wanted to scream hysterically. However, in the end, all that was left in her heart was despair. She couldn't do that. She had no reason. There had never been a moment when Lu Yintong regretted what she had done that day as much as she did now. From the beginning, she shouldn't have made that bet. She shouldn't have agreed to the conditions that Chu Yu had proposed. But now, it was too late to say anything. Thinking of the warning that Liang Xiaoxiao and the others had given her before they left, she gradually felt uneasy. Jiang Jiwan alone wasn't that difficult to deal with, but there were so many of them. Moreover, she still had the Yuntian Tower's clan leader behind her. Thinking of this, her legs finally went weak and she almost fell to the ground. Ah Tong! Gong Sheng hurriedly supported her. His brows were tightly knitted and his eyes were filled with worry. Ah Tong, I'll send you back first? Lu Yintong nodded with difficulty. Gong Sheng looked at Chu Luiwei and said in a deep voice, Junior brother Chu Yu, don't think that you can completely remove yourself from this matter. If anything happens to Ah Tong in the future, you definitely won't be able to escape. With that, he supported Lu Yintong and left. Chu Luiwei lowered his head and glanced at Dumpling. Dumpling, for you, I've offended everyone I could. Dumpling quickly raised her head. Her eyes were bright, and there seemed to be a silver tinlay flickering in the depths of her eyes. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but smile. The effect at the mouth of the spring was really obvious. Dumpling was already very strong. I wonder what she would be like when her bloodline power fully awakens? While Dumpling was devouring the power in the spring, Chu Luiwei wasn't idle either. The concentration of origin power on Thousand Wine Mountain was also very high. Perhaps it was because there was a lot of Tianlei stored in the spring, but the origin power was somewhat different from the outside. Chu Luiwei simply sat cross-legged and began to cultivate in peace. She was indeed getting closer and closer to breaking through to the middle stage of the 9th rank. In fact, she could already feel the invisible barrier. It was as if she could break it with just a little bit of force. Chu Luiwei was waiting for that opportunity. Seeing Chu Luiwei so calm and composed, the others on the mountain felt even more strange. Speaking of which, the source of today's dispute was still Chuyu. Lu Yintong and Jiang Jiwan had completely fallen out, but he acted as if nothing had happened. Not only did he allow his contracted divine beast to drink the spring water, he even started to cultivate on the spot. Just what kind of confidence did he have to be so calm and collected? If he didn't have a backer, they wouldn't have heard of him. If it wasn't for his strong mental fortitude, this would have been proven several times since he entered the academy. Originally, some people wanted to go up and greet him, but when they thought of what happened tonight, they gave up. Offending Lu Yintong wasn't enough, and now there was also Jiang Jiwan. Although the two of them were the ones who fell out, as long as Jiang Jiwan calmed down, Chuyu would more or less be implicated. After thinking about it, most people chose to stay away. Thousand Wine Mountain gradually quieted down. On another mountain, Elder Wensi was tidying up the ancient books that he had treasured for many years in his room. There was a thin layer of dust on the bookshelf. It was obvious that no one had touched it for a long time. Elder Wensi waved his sleeve and swept away all the dust on it. Looking at the flying dust, his eyes were a little blurred, and he muttered to himself in a low voice, "That's right. It's been a long time since someone came to peek. Knock knock." There was a knock on the door. Elder Wensi put away his thoughts and looked up. The door opened, and a familiar figure was leaning against the door frame. "Huafeng? Why are you here again?" Elder Wensi secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but a trace of impatience appeared on his face. From the corner of his eye, he saw Elder Huafeng holding a wine pot in his hand. "Go back and drink by yourself." As Elder Wensi spoke, he was about to chase him away. "Why are you wandering around so late at night?" He walked over and was about to close the door when he smelled a strong smell of alcohol. It was the smell of Elder Huafeng. Elder Wensi frowned in disdain. "Why are you drinking so much?" "Let me say this first, I don't accept drunkards, Wensi." Elder Huafeng suddenly spoke. He wasn't drunk at all. He slowly exhaled. "Tell me, why hasn't that scourge appeared yet?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1180. Elder Wensi's heart skipped a beat. He took a closer look at him and found that his face was normal. His eyes were clear, and he didn't look drunk at all. And the strong smell of alcohol seemed to be coming from his clothes. The wine pot was empty, but it seemed that the wine didn't enter his intestines. Instead, it spilled out. Elder Wensi grabbed his arm and pulled him into the room, closing the door behind him. After confirming that there was no one around, Elder Wensi looked at him. "You came here today to talk to me about this?" Elder Huafeng found a chair and sat down. He frowned as if he couldn't figure it out. Say, she had already entered Fangzhou City that day. Logically speaking, no matter how much she likes to play, she should have come back after so long, right? But why is there no sign of her? For this reason, he specially waited for a few days in Fangzhou, but until now, she still hadn't appeared. The more time passed, the more Elder Huafeng couldn't let go. So he came to Elder Wensi to ask for his opinion. She has always been like this. Her temper is unpredictable, and she might have been delayed by something at the last minute. Besides, even if she returned to Fangzhou, no one said that she must return to the academy. Elder Wensi sat down next to him. Maybe she left again? Elder Huafeng's lips moved, and he couldn't help but curse in a low voice. That little heartless girl. She had already arrived in Fangzhou. With her ability, she would definitely know that it was him and Wensi who were there that day. She ran away without a trace for a few years, and when she came back, she didn't even see me. I don't know where the rules are. Elder Wensi glanced at him meaningfully. When has she ever had the slightest connection with the word rules? Bang. Elder Huafeng slammed the wine pot on the table. If she doesn't come back, then so be it. Without her, this old man can still drink a few more pots of wine. Elder Wensi couldn't be bothered to expose him. Looking at his bored expression, he knew that no matter how much he drank, he wouldn't be happy. She has her own thoughts. When she wants to come back, she will naturally come back. What's the hurry? Elder Wensi smiled. Didn't you just accept a disciple recently? Teach her well. She's not even our disciple, so why waste your time here? Chi. Elder Huafeng glanced at the bookshelf next to him with infinite disdain. Then why did you deliberately release those unique copies? Other than her, no one else would dare to steal books from you. You, Elder Wensi choked. Hurting each other was the most annoying. Besides, didn't you also take in a disciple? Both Luo Shirshir and Zhua Sheng are good seedlings, especially Luo Shirshir. In the future, she'll definitely be ranked in the top 10 of the Ascension rankings. Half of that girl's thoughts are on that brat Chuyu. Elder Wensi couldn't help but tease. However, Chuyu's talent in this area seems to be pretty good. We didn't notice it before. They already knew that Chu Luiwei had defeated Lu Ziyan, and they were all very surprised. The fact that he was able to fight above his level was too telling. Back then, he only said that he was a rank 7 warrior and didn't reveal anything else. Who could have guessed it? However, it seemed that he was going to specialize in celestial physician. Elder Wensi shrugged. That old thing Wanjing got lucky. It's rare to see such a genius with spirituality. The two sat facing each other and were quiet for a while. Immediately, the two looked at each other. Huafeng, don't you think that Chu Yu is a bit similar to her? The moon was high in the sky. Soon, it was time to leave Thousand Wine Mountain. Chu Luiwei swallowed the last force and slowly opened his eyes. It wouldn't be long before she could break through. Turning his head to look, half of Dumpling's body was already soaked in the spring water. The water was bubbling and it looked very comfortable. Chu Luiwei grabbed its wings and lifted it up. Dumpling was originally enjoying itself, but it was suddenly interrupted and couldn't help but be resentful. Chu Luiwei pretended not to see it and shook it like a rag. Not today. She had just come out of Pingmin Mountain. Even if she wanted to come again, she couldn't choose today. Wouldn't that be deliberately making things difficult for the elders? Besides, Debeo had deliberately told her not to do anything when she left. She had a hunch that as long as she secretly did something here, Debeo would definitely know immediately. At that time, what awaited her wouldn't be a good result. I'll think of a way another day. The wet dumpling could only agree. Although the force she devoured now wasn't enough, she could barely accumulate it. When the time was right, she would completely activate the bloodline power together. When Chu Luiwei walked to the foot of the mountain, she looked back. Because she had already walked out of the barrier, the scene at the top of the mountain couldn't be seen clearly. Perhaps there were still elders refining there, or perhaps the power of Tianlei in the spring was still increasing. She retracted her gaze and left with Dumpling. For the next period of time, Chu Luiwei lived very peacefully. During the day, she studied the medical skills and alchemy that Elder Wanzheng gave her, and at night, she brought Debeo to Thousand Wine Mountain to cultivate. Of course, before going to Thousand Wine Mountain, Debeo would still come on time to spar with her. Perhaps it was because the incident between Lu Yintong and Jiang Ji1 on the first day was too big, so not many people went to Thousand Wine Mountain during this period of time. This undoubtedly made things much easier for Chu Luiwei. 10 days later, she successfully broke through to middle stage 7th stage. It seemed that everything was progressing smoothly. However, as time passed, Chu Luiwei became more and more anxious. Because she still couldn't think of a way to stay in Thousand Wine Mountain all day. Every day, Dumpling could only rely on the little time at night to accumulate power. More importantly, the power of heavenly lightning stored in the spring would only appear during the time of the prohibition. And that was the key to activating Dumpling's bloodline power. Bang! Halfway up the mountain, Chu Liwei slapped her hand, and the pills in the medicine cauldron quickly flew up. She quickly pulled them back and put them into a jade box. Click! The remnants of the rich medicinal fragrance spread out. Master! Chu Liwei walked over and presented the jade box with both hands. Elder Wanzheng stroked his beard in satisfaction and took the jade box. I didn't expect you to choose this for your first pill refinement. As he spoke, he opened the jade box, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Actually, when Chu Liwei and Lu Ziyan challenged each other, he saw it clearly from the Donghuang bell tower. He already knew that his new disciple's talent and ability in pill refinement were stronger than he expected. However, when he saw this pill, he was still shocked and overjoyed. You succeeded in refining a superior grade 8 pill on your first try. Moreover, you did every step very well. How rare! He looked at Chu Liwei with emotion. It won't be long before you can try refining a grade 9 pill. Chu Liwei chuckled, took out the medical book, and handed it over. Elder Wanzheng was stunned. What are you? Chu Liwei paused. This student has finished reading this book, so I'll return it to you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1181. You finished reading it? Elder Wanzheng asked in shock. You've memorized all the prescriptions in the book? Chu Liwei nodded. She had finished reading it a few days ago, but she only had time to return the book today. Some of the prescriptions were for grade 8 and grade 9. They were all high-quality elixir prescriptions. Elder Wanzheng looked at her suspiciously. I know you have a photographic memory, but you've understood all the grade 9 prescriptions? The difference between grade 8 and grade 9 was not as simple as a grade 8 elixir. A grade 9 elixir required several times more herbs than a grade 8 elixir. The process was complicated, and it required a lot of techniques and other aspects. It was not easy to break through from a grade 8 celestial physician to a grade 9 one. Usually, a grade 8 celestial physician would have to put in a lot of effort to understand the grade 9 prescriptions. It had only been 10 days, and he had already mastered all of them? Chu Liwei met his gaze and smiled. Master, if you don't believe me, you can test me. Elder Wanzheng took the book and asked a few questions. Chu Liwei answered all of them fluently. Elder Wanzheng looked at her, and the corner of his eyes twitched. You've seen the prescriptions in the book before? Chu Liwei pondered for a moment. I've seen 5 of them before. It was her first time reading the rest of the books. But she had still managed to understand all of them in such a short time. Elder Wanzheng felt very conflicted. When he saw Chu Liwei successfully fusing the elixir the other day, he knew she was not far from becoming a grade 9 celestial physician. But this was a little too. Master, what's wrong? Chu Liwei asked when she saw his strange expression. Elder Wanzheng held the cauldron and waved his hand. Nothing. I'm just lamenting how it feels to have a genius disciple. Chu Liwei was speechless. Brat, you're still unknown even now. You're simply... Elder Wanzheng looked at Chu Liwei with a faint gaze. He had been in Lingxiao College for many years and had seen many students. Those who could enter this place were naturally all geniuses. However, even geniuses had differences in strength. And Chu Liwei was undoubtedly one of the best. In fact, until now, he still didn't know much about his new disciple's background. If he really came from some aristocratic family, with such talent, his reputation should have spread far and wide. Chu Liwei lowered his eyes slightly. That doesn't seem to be the case. Her title as the Princess of the Yuntian Tower seemed to be quite famous outside recently, but of course, he couldn't say that. Have you ever tried to refine a 9th grade medicinal pill? Elder Wanzheng asked. Chu Liwei shook his head. After her rebirth, her strength had not been restored, so she had not done so. Elder Wanzheng recalled the medicinal pill that she had just refined. The color was uniform and the medicinal fragrance was rich. It could be said to be of superior quality. Your aura seems to be stronger than before? Because Chu Luiwei had been carrying a yuan item that concealed her aura, even Elder Wan Zheng couldn't clearly determine her current level. Chu Luiwei nodded with a smile. I've just broken through to the intermediate stage of the 7th grade. I see. Elder Wan Zheng pondered for a moment before smashing his fist into his other palm. He seemed to be itching for action as he asked, "What's the matter? Since you've broken through, why don't you try to refine a 9th grade medicinal pill?" Chu Luiwei was stunned for a moment, but she didn't refuse. "I'll listen to you, master." Elder Wan Zheng was very happy to hear that she had agreed. "Don't worry. This is just a try. It doesn't matter if you don't succeed. Since you finished reading that book, there are some inferior 9th grade medicinal pills in it. Do you like any of them?" Chu Luiwei thought for a moment and chose a simpler one. "I think that the 9 Golden Crossing pill is not bad." 9 Golden Crossing pill? Not bad, not bad. That medicinal pill can help 8th grade cultivators break through their bottleneck and reach the 9th grade. If you can refine it, you can keep it for yourself in the future. Elder Wan Zheng felt that this was a good choice and immediately agreed. Its refining method is considered relatively simple among the 9th grade pills. It's just right for me to use it for practice. However, there are a few special medicinal herbs that I don't have here. You can go to the Medicine Wind Valley to get some. Chu Luiwei wanted to say that she had those medicinal herbs, but after thinking for a moment, she swallowed those words. In any case, she still had the 100,000 points that Elder Wan Zheng had given her. She hadn't used them yet, and she had been in the academy for a while now. She wanted to take this opportunity to take a look at the Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Wan Zheng confirmed the medicinal herbs that she needed and explained the location of the Medicine Wind Valley in detail before letting her go. Chu Luiwei replied respectfully and headed to the Medicine Wind Valley alone. Lingxiao College was huge. The Medicine Wind Valley was a place where the academy specialized in growing medicinal herbs. It even occupied a large area. Chu Luiwei spent a full hour before she finally arrived. As the name suggested, the Medicine Wind Valley was a canyon. On both sides were undulating mountain peaks. Only in the middle was a concave and winding canyon. Within the canyon, including the mountain peaks on both sides, there were all kinds of medicinal herbs planted. Chu Luiwei stood on one of the mountain peaks and looked down. Although she was mentally prepared, she still couldn't help but be amazed. On the neatly divided plots of land, there were all kinds of treasures of heaven and earth. The colors were gorgeous, and there were all kinds of charm. The air was filled with the rich smell of various herbs mixed together, making people feel intoxicated just by smelling it. Among them, she could see some elders and students. This scene was unexpectedly harmonious and moving. In the middle of the canyon was an empty space. An old man had set up a bed and was lying on it, looking very carefree. Occasionally, someone would go over. Chu Luiwei looked for a while and understood. That elder should be in charge of looking after the medicinal herbs of the Medicine Wind Valley. Everyone who wanted to exchange medicinal herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley had to go to him to register. Chu Luiwei flew down. The Medicine Wind Valley was huge, and there were countless types of medicinal herbs planted. Hence, it wasn't easy to accurately find the few medicinal herbs one wanted. Fortunately, Chu Luiwei had already roughly determined the location of 3 medicinal herbs at the beginning. Hence, she found them quickly after going down. There were still 2 left. She started to slowly search for them among the medicinal herbs scattered all over the mountain. Being surrounded by the rich medicinal fragrance, Chu Luiwei couldn't help but take a deep breath. She felt much more refreshed and comfortable. Chu Luiwei didn't lack medicinal herbs. After all, Taizu and Rong Xiu's belongings were all with her. However, looking around, she still saw some precious medicinal herbs that she didn't have. Treasures of heaven and earth that were hard to come by outside seemed to be very common here. The #1 academy in the Divine Ruins world lived up to its name. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1182. Some people would look over from time to time, as if they had recognized Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei ignored all of them and continued to search for the herbs she needed. After looking around, she found one. However, she could not find the remaining bone-melting treasured leaf after searching for a long time. The Medicine Wind Valley was really too big, and there were too many types of herbs. The bone-melting treasured leaf was only the size of a fingernail and was very difficult to find. However, this thing had always liked to grow towards the sun, and there was a high chance that it could be found on the sun side of the mountain. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and walked towards the mountain on the left. After walking for a long distance, she finally smelled that familiar faint fishy smell. She was overjoyed. It should be in front. However, just as she was about to take a few quick steps forward to retrieve the bone-melting treasured leaf, a transparent enchantment suddenly appeared in front of her, emitting a faint glow. She stopped in her tracks. "Kid, that is not a place you can go." An old and low voice sounded, as if he had just woken up, and there was even a hint of laziness in it. Chu Luiwei looked at the faintly discernible silver lines on the barrier, as well as that astonishing pressure, and tactfully stopped and looked back. Her current location was very remote, and there was no one around. Looking around, those words seemed to have come from the elder lying in the middle of the Medicine Wind Valley in the distance. There was a very long distance between the two of them, and that elder was still lying on that small broken wooden bed, motionless, as if he was sleeping soundly. However, that voice was very clear, as if the person was right beside her. "Kid, what are you looking at?" That voice had a hint of ridicule. Chu Luiwei was sure that the person who spoke was indeed that person. She was secretly surprised. The Medicine Wind Valley was so big, but everything was obviously under the control of that elder. This huge barrier should be his handiwork. She cupped her fists in the direction of that elder and bowed respectfully. "Student Chu Yu greets elder." "En? Chu Yu?" Hearing her words, the elder's voice carried a bit of surprise. Then, Chu Luiwei saw that the elder who had been lying motionless finally sit up. He covered his eyebrows with one hand and glanced over. Even though she couldn't see the other party's face and expression clearly, Chu Luiwei was very sure that the other party was sizing her up with curiosity. "You're the brat who was sent to Pingmin Mountain after just one day?" Chu Luiwei. It turned out that she was already so famous in Lingxiao College. Student is ashamed. She lowered her head slightly. Just now, this student only wanted to take a few pieces of bone-melting precious leaves. "I didn't know that I couldn't go there. I didn't mean to offend you, please forgive me." "It's your first time here, so it's normal that you don't know about this." The elder didn't seem to blame Chu Luiwei. Instead, he laughed. "However, it seems that Wan Zheng is very satisfied with you. He actually let you come to the Medicine Wind Valley so quickly?" The elders were obviously familiar with each other. Chu Luiwei didn't know how to respond for a moment, so she obediently quieted down. The location of the bone-melting precious leaves is indeed strange, but it's still within the boundary. Go and take it, but don't cross the boundary. There was a subtle fluctuation behind her. Chu Luiwei looked back and saw that the light on the boundary had dimmed a lot. It was obvious that the elder had deliberately reduced the power of the boundary. Feeling that the pressure that made her chest feel uncomfortable had been greatly reduced, Chu Luiwei breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. She immediately took a few steps forward and pushed aside a patch of barren grass. Sure enough, she found a few stalks of bone-melting precious leaves in the narrow crack under a huge rock. The leaves were dark green in color and were only the size of a fingernail. The edges were jagged and covered with a faint layer of white frost. They looked crystal clear like green jade. If one looked carefully, one could see the fine veins in the leaves, which looked like a skeleton. Chu Luiwei carefully took a few leaves. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew. The fine strands of hair on her forehead fell down, making her cheeks slightly itchy. She straightened her back and inadvertently looked forward. Suddenly, her eyes focused. After the power of the boundary was greatly reduced, the scene that was originally blurry became much clearer. This also allowed her to see the scenery that she had not noticed before. In the distance, there seemed to be a dark blue lake. The lake water was clear and there was a faint layer of white mist on the surface of the lake, adding a bit of hazy beauty. However, this was not the reason why Chu Luiyue was so shocked. She frowned slightly, her eyes fixed on the translucent pink flowers blooming on the surface of the lake, and waves rose in her heart. That was dancing lotus. Large patches of dancing lotus swayed gently on the surface of the lake, as if it was a paradise. The dancing lotus was extremely precious and difficult to cultivate. Even Chu Luiyue did not dare to guarantee that she could cultivate a dancing lotus. Thinking back to the time when she wanted to get that one, she went through many twists and turns, and now there were so many of them here. Just as Chu Luiyue was shocked, a wave of light flashed in front of her eyes, and a strong pressure attacked her. She suddenly came back to her senses and quickly took a few steps back. When she looked up again, the boundary had returned to its original appearance. However, the lake and the blooming dancing lotuses that he had seen just now had already become blurry and disappeared. For a moment, Chu Luiyue almost suspected that she was hallucinating. However, the faintly discernible fragrance lingering on the tip of her nose reminded her that everything was real. "Kid, you have taken the things and it's time to go." The elder's voice fell in her ears. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips, retracted her gaze, and turned to walk in the direction of the elder. After passing through half of the Medicine Wind Valley, Chu Luiyue finally arrived at the center. She bowed respectfully. "Student greets elder." Elder Meng Ye's hair was a little messy. He was dressed in a white robe, barefoot, and sat lazily on the small broken wooden bed. One leg was stretched out, the other was bent, and his elbow was on his knee, very casually. He opened a pair of small eyes and looked up and down at Chu Luiyue. "TSK, you look quite obedient, but your courage is very big." He chuckled and asked ambiguously, "Did you see anything just now?" Chu Luiyue paused and shook her head. "Student didn't see anything." "Tisk." Elder Meng Yi picked up a piece of wood in his hand and knocked it directly on Chu Luiyue's forehead. "You're so young and you're still not telling the truth? This old man won't eat you." Chu Luiyue hissed and answered honestly, "I'm sorry." Student knows her mistake. Student just saw a patch of blooming dancing lotus. "Is there anything else?" "No." Elder Meng Yi was satisfied and snorted softly. "That's more like it. In this Medicine Wind Valley, no one is allowed to be secretive with this old man, do you understand?" Chu Luiyue said sincerely, "Thank you for your teachings, elder. By the way, you don't have to tell Wan Zheng about this when you go back." Chu Luiyue was stunned. But. Elder Meng Yi snorted softly. "That herb garden is... Forget it, forget it. Why are you asking these questions? Just remember this old man's words." Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly jumped. Herb garden? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1183. The elders and students of the academy all needed herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley to refine pills. In the entire academy, only one person had her own herb garden. That student whose name was erased from the Azure Sky roll. In that case, that herb garden belonged to that person? Chu Luiyue thought to herself. Previously, she had only heard Zhong Sun mention that the dean had specially dug out a piece of land from the Medicine Wind Valley for that student to use as her herb garden. And that place was off-limits to others. Chu Luiyue had originally thought that it was hidden in some secret place, but she did not expect that it was right beside the Medicine Wind Valley. It was just that the elders had used a barrier to separate it, so the people in the Medicine Wind Valley were unable to detect it. Chu Luiyue recalled that when she had first arrived, she had stood at the top of the mountain and looked around. At that time, she did not see any extra boundaries. Now that she thought about it, that herb garden should have been concealed by some special means. Originally, Chu Luiyue did not have much interest in that herb garden, but when she saw the large expanse of blooming dancing lotuses, she suddenly felt extremely curious and wanted to investigate. She also could not say where this feeling came from. It was as if there was something hidden inside that had an inexplicable attraction to her. But these were only thoughts that flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind. She lowered her eyes. Elder is right, this student will definitely keep it in mind. Elder Meng Yi liked this attitude very much. He laughed mischievously. "All right, You don't need to be nervous, you are Wan Zheng's disciple after all, this face has to be given. Right, let's calculate the points for these things. He pointed to the side with his mouth. Only then did Chu Luiyue see a green jade token hanging at the head of the bed. Thinking about it, it should be his. Just put your black jade token on it. Chu Luiyue obediently did as she was told. The moment the two tokens touched, a white light flashed. Chu Luiyue clearly saw that the number on it had changed from 6 to 5. She immediately felt her heart ache. So expensive. These few herbs were not ordinary items, so the price was naturally not cheap. Fortunately, these were given by Elder Wan Zheng, so they were still acceptable. In the future, she would definitely have to pay for it herself. Chu Luiyue took back her black jade token and bowed to bid farewell. After her figure disappeared from the Medicine Wind Valley, Elder Meng Yi stroked his beard and lay back down. He crossed his legs and swung his feet. Why does this kid? Why does he look so familiar? Chu Luiyue returned with the herbs. Elder Wan Zheng, when he saw her return, he smiled. Everything went well? Chu Luiyue said. I didn't let Master down. I've brought everything back. Elder Wan Zheng counted the items and nodded in satisfaction. He then asked, What are you doing? Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Luiyue pondered for a while and said seriously, Sect is a place. Ha ha. Elder Wan Zheng laughed loudly. It is indeed a place full of spirit and beauty. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered slightly. To be able to cultivate so many heavenly treasures at the same time, the existence of the Medicine Wind Valley itself was a miracle. Only the Lingxiao College, with its 10,000 years of heritage, could have such a deep and long heritage. There are a lot of good things in there. If you want to refine pills in the future, just go there and take the herbs. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up, but quickly dimmed again. Elder Wan Zheng sharply caught the change in her expression and couldn't help but ask, Why? Is there a problem? This? Chu Luiyue smiled embarrassedly. Many of the herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley require a lot of points, so it was because of this. Elder Wan Zheng reacted and waved his hand casually. I thought it was something serious. Isn't it just points? As long as you can quickly break through to become a 9th grade celestial physician and enter the green cloud role, I will definitely prepare a generous gift for you. During this period, if you need any herbs, just let me know. They are all public funds. Deduct them from me. What were points? With such a rare genius disciple, who knew how many people would be envious to death. He had waited for so long and finally found a good disciple. How could he not do his best to nurture her? In comparison, wasn't it normal to waste some points and use some medicinal herbs? His heroic words immediately made Chu Luiyue energized. Master, are you serious? Elder Wan Zheng pretended to be angry and glared at her. How could Master lie to you when you say that? Don't worry. Chu Luiyue smiled until her eyes curved into crescents and her starry eyes sparkled. Then I will thank you in advance, Master. Elder Wan Zheng waved his hand. Come, let me see if you can refine a 9th grade pill. Chu Luiyue nodded, walked to the side of the cauldron, and arranged the herbs in order. Bang! She slapped her hands on the mouth of the cauldron. 2 clusters of red flames instantly surged out. The entire cauldron was filled. Boom! The flames burned fiercely. The surrounding temperature also rose by a lot in an instant. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Then she methodically placed the herbs in one by one to refine. All kinds of herbs gathered in the flames of the cauldron. Elder Wan Zheng looked at her smooth and skillful movements from the side and felt a wave of excitement in his heart. When he said that he wanted Chu Yu to enter the green cloud role within 2 to 3 months, many people expressed their doubts. This time, he must let his precious disciple blind their eyes. He yelled heroically, You're so lucky. Disciple, refine well. Refine without worry. With Master backing you, you can refine however you want. Digression. 3 seconds of silence for Elder Wan Zheng. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1184. With that, Chu Luiyue was relieved. Such an opportunity was hard to come by. Of course, she had to cherish it. Hence, she quickly recalled the herbs she had seen in the Medicine Wind Valley today. After doing some calculations, she finally came to a conclusion. She had struck it rich this time. Even if it was because Elder Wan Zheng was willing to spend so much money, she had to refine the pills properly this time. Thousands of miles away, in the dark feather abyss. Surrounded by mountains, it was verdant and rich. In the middle was an azure water body. Countless trees grew in it, adding to the beautiful greenery. The sky and water merged into one. The tree branches swayed, and water poured down from one direction, forming a faint silver waterfall. It was like a river flowing through the forest. It was magnificent and wonderful. This was an extremely special place in the Divine Ruins world. It was said that thousands of years ago, there was once a king of equipment refinement who had successfully refined a king's source tool here. It was a pity that he had exhausted all his strength and essence chi. Not long after he had refined it, he had died. That king's source tool had been lost in the dark feather abyss since then, and its whereabouts were unknown. For thousands of years, countless cultivators from the Divine Ruins world had come here. They had dug 3 feet into the ground to find that king's source tool. However, the dark feather abyss was full of danger. Cultivators had died here one after another, but no one had found that item. Gradually, the number of people who came here decreased. However, in recent months, strange phenomena had occurred in the dark feather abyss. Many people guessed that the king's source tool was about to be born. Hence, everyone was shocked. Many forces were eager to take advantage of this opportunity to take it for themselves. Originally, the Spirit Firmament Academy rarely participated in such matters. However, it was different this time. That was because the king of equipment refinement who had died here back then was from Lingxiao College. Hence, this time, a team formed by several elders and students had made preparations and come here. Rong Xiu and the others had been waiting here for a full 10 days. During this process, there were still people coming from all over. Some people wanted to retreat when they saw Lingxiao College's team. In the end, they tactfully chose to leave. But there was still a part that remained. It was true that Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world, and it was also true that Rong Xiu and the others were backed by extraordinary first-rate families. But even so, it was not enough to dismiss everyone. After all, the Yuntian Tower was not the only first-rate family in the Divine Ruins. Moreover, with benefits in front of them, who would care about such things? At this time, everyone had gathered at Dark Feather's Abyss, waiting for the appearance of the legendary King Yuan device. It has already been so long. Other than the occasional strange phenomenon in the sky, there has been no reaction from below. I don't know when that treasure will appear. A young woman's voice came from the crowd of Lingxiao College students. It's a king-grade origin tool after all, so it's only natural that it would take a lot of effort. He had already waited for thousands of years. What was a little bit more to him? Someone beside him consoled him. Yeah. It has been a long time since a Yuan tool of this level has appeared in the Divine Ruins world. Moreover, this belongs to a senior elder of our academy. No matter how long it takes, we still have to wait. Not only do we have to wait, but we also have to successfully bring that thing back. Otherwise, wouldn't this trip be a waste? It would be embarrassing for the academy. They discussed in low voices. However, Rong Xiu did not say anything from the beginning to the end. He just stood at the side and waited patiently. He wore a snow-white brocade robe and stood tall and straight. He seemed to be quietly admiring the scenery of Dark Feather's Abyss. But if one looked closely, they would see that the surrounding heaven and earth origin force was quickly and silently surging into his body. This was something that his companions had already noticed on the way here. But every time they saw it, they could not help but feel shocked. Only a person who had completely stepped into the god level could do this. But he was still able to do it so smoothly and casually. It was so easy that it was hard for others to even feel jealous. When a person was slightly more outstanding than the people around them, they would often be envied and even ostracized. But if the difference was so great that they could only look up to him, then those emotions would turn into admiration and admiration. Rong Xiu was the second type. It was not that no one wanted to surpass him, but it was just too difficult. Rong Xiu has left the academy for a few years, right? I didn't expect his strength to increase so quickly. Even some of the academy's elders might not be his match now, right? Didn't they say that the Yuntian Tower has been in chaos these past few years? I thought he would be busy dealing with these matters and would not have the time and energy to cultivate properly. Who knew? Now that the Yuntian Tower is in his hands, his strength has increased greatly. How did he do it? You're asking me? If I knew, would I still be like this? The group of people roared with laughter, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. But sometimes, there were people who liked to ruin such an atmosphere. He just broke through to the god level a step earlier. What's there to be suspicious about? Wei Shiping's face was cold, and his voice was laced with sarcasm. The surrounding people gradually quieted down. Many people looked at each other and secretly exchanged glances. A young woman smiled and said, "That's easy. Wei Shiping, you're a famous genius cultivator. Don't tell me you don't know how difficult it is to break through to the god level a step earlier?" They were about the same age, and they had entered the academy at the same time. But now, Rong Xiu had broken through to the god level, and they could only look up to him. The gap between them was getting wider and wider. How could they not be moved? Wei Shiping gritted his teeth and did not reply. He thought to himself, when I have the chance, I'll teach Rong Xiu a lesson. This time, when the King Source tool appeared, I must get it before Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu was completely oblivious to all the discussions. He kept devouring the force of heaven and earth around him to strengthen his cultivation base. At the same time, he looked down at the scenery below and around him. His handsome and devilish face was expressionless. No one knew what he was thinking. Rumble. A loud noise suddenly came from the sky. The originally noisy discussions all disappeared. Everyone raised their heads to look. In the originally cloudless sky, dark clouds were rapidly gathering. The wind howled and thunder rumbled. The sky quickly darkened. It's for real this time. That thing is about to appear. On a mountain peak not far away, a burly man with dark skin laughed. Just in time. Let me see how big of a commotion this King Source tool can cause. Rong Xiu looked up as well. His deep eyes were calm and unfathomable. Rumble. Tianlei landed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1185. The waterfall below gradually stopped flowing. A whirlpool appeared in the center of the blue water. As time passed, the whirlpool gradually expanded and swallowed all the trees in the surroundings silently. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and started to rotate slowly, forming a huge storm. Between heaven and earth, there was darkness. The wind howled, and the pressure was heavy. The people waiting on the peaks of the dark feather abyss were all energized. Judging from the situation, the King Yuan artifact was about to appear. When all the water in the water is sucked dry, that will be the time when the King Yuan artifact appears. At that time, we must act quickly and snatch the artifact before anyone else. Elder Shu Feng instructed seriously. Everyone nodded their heads and waited for the battle to begin. Time passed slowly. Under the whirlpool, there seemed to be a black hole that kept swallowing everything around it. The storm in the sky also gradually came down. Countless pairs of eyes stared at this scene. At a certain moment, just as the whirlpool was about to disappear, the storm hit. The two collided. Boom! A loud sound came from within. The next moment, a dazzling light burst out from within. Elder Shu Feng gave the order and took the lead to charge out. The people behind him also moved out. At the same time, the people waiting at the dark feather abyss all rushed over. Lingshao College was actually the fastest. Seeing that they were about to take the lead, the others started to panic. The dark-skinned brawny man who spoke earlier suddenly shouted in a deep voice. Everyone, let's join forces. Elder Shu Feng and the others' hearts sank when they heard this. Sure enough, the man then shouted again, Hey! This treasure was left behind by the people of the Spirit Firmament Academy back then. If they want to snatch it, it will be much easier for them than for us. Why don't we join forces to defeat them first and then decide who the treasure belongs to? His voice was deep and full of energy. As soon as he opened his mouth, his voice spread out between the heavens and the earth. Many people hesitated for a moment and looked at each other with complicated expressions. Elder Shu Feng shouted angrily. Golden Wing Sect. How dare you? The man laughed out loud. I've already dared to steal from you in front of you. What's there to be afraid of? Their Golden Wing Sect was also a first-rate sect in the Divine Ruins world. Moreover, they had a deep foundation and were full of confidence. Lingxiao College had a prestigious status, but it was just a college after all. It was true that there were many experts, but it was still different from the orthodox sects and aristocratic families. After all, it was impossible for Lingxiao College to have all the elders and students risk their lives for the school. Moreover, even though the treasure that had appeared today was a rarely seen king-grade origin tool, it definitely wasn't enough for Lingxiao College to fall out with everyone because of it. That was why they dared to snatch it so brazenly. In addition, there were other people present, so they were even more unscrupulous. Everyone, what are you hesitating for? Since you're already here, do you intend to watch the treasure fall into the hands of others? This sentence finally made the people from the other sects and clans make up their minds. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Those who had originally planned to charge toward the center had all turned around and were heading toward the people from Lingxiao College. Other than Lingxiao College, there was also the Four Directions sect here. Their numbers added up to almost 180 people, which was several times more than Lingxiao Academy's side. Even if the people from Lingxiao College were all quite strong, they wouldn't be able to withstand the siege of so many people. After all, if they dared to openly oppose them, their strength wouldn't be too weak. If they were to fight against them, they would definitely lose today's battle. Several groups of people surrounded the Spirit Firmament Academy, trapping them within. Elder Shu Feng's mind raced as he looked at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu. We'll hold them back. Find an opportunity to retrieve that item. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Do you think it's that easy to dodge? The man sneered and charged toward Rong Xiu. I'll take you on first. Rong Xiu raised his eyes slightly. His expression was cold, and there was no emotion in the depths of his eyes. In the next moment, his figure suddenly vanished on the spot. What? Not only the man who was about to fight Rong Xiu, but also the other people who were watching were all shocked. They weren't shocked that Rong Xiu knew how to teleport, but they were shocked that he could still move so easily and freely under such strong suppression. There were quite a number of great gods present. Even if they were all great gods, they might not be able to escape so quickly. The next moment, Rong Xiu appeared behind the crowd. He was only a short distance away from the dazzling ball of light. The man from the Golden Wing sect was the first to react. He shouted, "Stop him!" Elder Shu Feng ordered, "Let's go!" Go! The two sides clashed and quickly descended into a chaotic battle. A few cold gusts of wind came from behind, but Rong Xiu did not turn around. He quickly dodged them and easily avoided them. In the blink of an eye, he was already at the location of the storm. Standing there, everything was presented clearly in front of his eyes. The water from before had disappeared, and there was only a huge black vortex spinning slowly above the swamp-like wetland. It was dark and bottomless. Looking down from above, it looked like a giant beast with its bloody mouth wide open. Once one fell into it, endless torture and death awaited them. At this moment, the storm formed by the gathering dark clouds in the sky had already connected with the vortex. The grayish-black storm was also gradually being swallowed by the black hole. At the point where the two connected, there was a ball of light that was emitting a dazzling light. It was only the size of a person's head, and its light was soft and bright. It was exuding a vast and divine aura. Rong Xiu stared at it, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. This aura, it doesn't seem to be a king-grade yuan device. Die! Rong Xiu's momentary daze gave the people behind him an opportunity to attack. The difference in numbers was too great. Even though the people from Lingxiao College had already done their best, they were gradually at a disadvantage. Some people took the opportunity to break through their defense line and went straight for Rong Xiu. Sensing the cold aura behind him, Rong Xiu's expression turned cold, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He did not turn around. He only raised his hand and waved it. A golden light flew out. It formed an extremely sturdy barrier around him. The muscular man who was originally confident of victory suddenly changed his expression. At this moment, Rong Xiu had already rushed forward and grabbed the ball of light. Elder Shu Feng could not fight against 4 hands with 2 fists, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he immediately noticed the commotion on Rong Xiu's side, and he couldn't help but be elated. He endured the bloody smell in his mouth and hollered, "Activate the formation." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1186. The elders at the side moved simultaneously. Rays of brilliant light flew out and intertwined in midair. In the blink of an eye, they formed a huge Xian formation. A faint, suppressive aura spread out from it. The surrounding space was distorted, and several black spatial cracks appeared. "They're leaving!" Suddenly, someone exclaimed loudly. The man from the Golden Wing sect looked at Rong Xiu with anger and jealousy. However, for some reason, he did not move forward, as if he was afraid of something. Hearing that shout, he hesitated for a moment and turned around. Destroy their Xian formation. Everyone knew that once the Xian formation was completed, the people from Lingxiao College would be able to escape quickly. At that time, it would be even more difficult for them to stop them. Everyone attacked together. Elder Shu Feng and the rest did not care about their own safety and increased the speed of building the Xian formation. The Xian formation was complicated and beautiful. As the patterns on it were completed, the aura on it became stronger. "I'd like to see how you're going to go back today." With a low shout, the man from the Golden Wing sect suddenly leaped up. He held a huge black axe in his hand and slashed it down fiercely. A crack appeared on the Xian formation. Terrifying energy surged out from the crack. It scattered in all directions. The faces of Elder Shu Feng and the others turned pale. If the Xian formation was destroyed, they would not be able to rush back to the academy in time. With so many people attacking them, they would definitely be defeated. He was furious and looked at the man. "Jin Lei, do you really want to go against Lingxiao College?" Jin Lei laughed. "Elder Shu Feng, please don't misunderstand. At the end of the day, all we want is that King Source tool. As long as you hand it over, I promise to let you go immediately. Furthermore, I'll personally come and apologize to you on another day." Elder Shu Feng was so angry that he laughed. This thing originally belonged to Lingxiao College. You've gone overboard by snatching it so brazenly. Do you still want us to hand it over? 8,000 years have passed. Jin Lei interrupted him with an arrogant look on his face. This thing was not refined in your Spirit Firmament Academy. Even the weapon refining king from back then had fallen here. Not even his bones were left. Then, how can this treasure belong to your academy? Since it's an ownerless item, what's wrong with us snatching it? You're being unreasonable. Elder Shu shouted. Stabilize the Xian formation. Jin Lei raised the axe in his hand again. Everyone, lend me a hand. There was already a crack in the Xian formation. If there was another crack, it would definitely collapse completely. The others also seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope. They all revealed excited expressions and poured their origin power into the axes. A terrifying power surged forth. Heaven and earth. The sweet and fishy taste in Elder Estranged Wind's mouth became even thicker. The rest of the people's Lingxiao College. Right at this moment, a golden streak of light flew over. Of the Xian were of the sun, following this buzzing sound, the Xian formation that was on the verge of collapse quickly recovered. The golden light also quickly split into many small branches that spread to the surroundings. In an instant, it covered more than half of the Xian formation. Seeing this scene, even the people from the Spirit Firmament Academy were shocked. Rong Xiu had dabbled in Shen masters, but he had always been outstanding as a martial artist and an instrument refiner. Therefore, everyone had always thought that although his comprehension of Shen masters was also very good, it could not be compared to his other two talents. But now, they realized that Rong Xiu had already become a top-notch expert in Shen masters. This Shen formation was successfully constructed with the combined efforts of so many people. Rong Xiu had actually repaired the Shen formation that was on the verge of collapse with his own strength and completed the remaining parts. Wei Shiping looked at the man who was floating in midair with his clothes fluttering in the wind. His white clothes fluttered like an immortal, but he was so powerful that people could only look up to him. Rong Xiu, was the gap between them already so big? He clenched his teeth and lowered his eyes to hide the unwillingness and jealousy that flashed across his eyes. At this moment, the Shen formation was finally completed. Elder Shu Feng immediately shouted, "Open!" Following his command, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky above the brilliant Shen formation. "Rong Xiu, let's go!" Elder Shu Feng anxiously shouted. Rong Xiu took a step forward, and his figure quickly disappeared into the crack. Then, the Lingxiao College students followed suit. Seeing them leave one by one, Jin Lei could not help but grip the axe in his hand tightly and was about to rush forward. "Chase!" The people behind him hurriedly dissuaded him. "No. This Shen formation has torn space. The other end must be Lingxiao College. We can't go there." "That's right. We can still fight them here, but if we go to their territory, I'm afraid." Everyone was discussing and expressing their opposition. Jin Lei's face darkened. If they let them leave with the Emperor-grade Yuan tool, they would not be willing to do so. There's a special barrier outside Lingxiao College. It's heavily guarded, and no one is allowed to enter or leave as they wish. I'm guessing that they're going to return to Fangzhou first. As long as they can make it in time, it's not impossible. He looked around and scanned the crowd with his cold eyes. Suddenly he sneered. "Have you forgotten? That's a Emperor-grade Yuan tool. Since we've already offended Lingxiao College, what's the difference?" His words made many people waver. After all, the Emperor-grade Yuan tool was too tempting. That Shen formation doesn't seem to be closed properly. Someone suddenly cried out in alarm. Everyone, including Jin Lei, looked over and saw that the crack suddenly paused just as it was about to close. Jin Lei did not hesitate at all. In a flash, he followed the person. Naturally, the people from Golden Wing sect followed closely behind. The remaining people looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. A middle-aged man suddenly shouted, "Let's go! We've already offended them. If we give up now, we'll be giving the treasure to Golden Wing sect for nothing." After saying that, he immediately moved. Everyone was already tempted. After hearing what he said, they no longer hesitated and rushed forward. Lingxiao College. Chu Luiwei was refining pills halfway up the mountain. Elder Wan Zheng was standing beside him. The surroundings were quiet, and the atmosphere was tense. Chu Luiwei's previous 2 attempts had failed. This was already his 3rd attempt. However, Elder Wan Zheng was not too worried. It was not easy to break through from an 8th-grade celestial physician to a 9th-grade celestial physician. If Chu Luiwei succeeded on his first try, it would be too strange. The process was very smooth, and he was about to reach the final step. Chu Luiwei held his breath and controlled the flames in the cauldron to fuse all the herbs together. Boom! The flames burned even more fiercely. However, at this moment, Elder Wan Zheng's expression suddenly changed. He turned around and looked in the direction of the entrance of the college. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1187. There was quite a distance between here and there, but Elder Wan Zheng was still sensitive enough to detect a dangerous aura. His brows furrowed tightly and he was about to leave. But after taking half a step, he suddenly remembered that Chu Luiwei was refining pills beside him. He forcefully suppressed the waves in his heart. After thinking about it, he still decided to stay here and wait for Chu Luiyue to finish refining the pills. Even if the academy was really in danger, there were other elders around. It wouldn't hurt to be a little late. On the other hand, Chu Luiyue was at the crucial moment of refining the pills. It wouldn't be good if they were to interrupt her. Chu Luiyue also realized that something was wrong with him. She turned her gaze and looked at him. His face was filled with anticipation and excitement, but now it was filled with nervousness and worry. Her heart also sank slightly. "Master, what's wrong?" Elder Wanjing quickly shook his head. "Nothing, nothing. Just concentrate on refining the pills. Master is here to help you. Don't be distracted. It's almost done." Chu Luiyue didn't believe him. She had been in the academy for quite some time, but she had never seen Elder Wanzheng with such an expression. She wanted to ask again, but after thinking about it, she held back and put her attention back on refining the pills. In the flames, a fist-sized pill had already appeared. Feeling the power contained in it, Chu Luiyue was slightly relieved. This time, she might really succeed. Although she was a 9th-grade celestial physician, she couldn't help but feel excited and happy to be able to climb up this ladder after her rebirth. Every day since she was reborn, she hoped that she could return to her peak and even become stronger. She didn't expect that the first to succeed would be a celestial physician. She held her breath and became more careful. Elder Wanzheng, who was at the side, still couldn't completely relax. From time to time, he would look in that direction. The academy's operation this time was confidential. Even some elders weren't clear about it. It showed how important this matter was to everyone. Calculating the time, they had been gone for more than 20 days. It was normal for them to return at this time. But that fluctuation, it was obviously strange and uneasy. In midair, several figures flashed past. Those were obviously the elders who had sensed that something was wrong and hurried over. Elder Wanzheng slowly clenched his fists. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She originally also wanted to concentrate on refining pills, but that subtle change in aura on Elder Wanzheng's body seriously made her unable to ignore it. She stared intently at the pill in the cauldron, carefully controlling the flame to condense it, and said, "Master, if there's really something urgent, you can go first. Anyway, I'm almost done here." "That won't do. I want to see it personally." "You don't have to care about those things, just focus on refining pills." Elder Wanzheng was very insistent. Chu Luiyue had no choice but to swallow the rest of his words. However, he was getting more and more curious. For Elder Wanzheng to be so worried, it must not be a small matter. Just now, a few elders had already flown over the sky. It seemed like they were heading towards the entrance of the academy. Could it be that someone had barged in to cause trouble? However, as soon as this thought appeared, it was dispelled by Chu Luiyue. This was Lingxiao College. Who would have the guts to cause trouble here? Wouldn't that be causing trouble for themselves? The red flame continued to burn, and the pill in it gradually condensed. A medicinal fragrance wafted from it. Elder Wanzheng's eyes lit up. He could not help but take a step forward and clasped his hands tightly in front of him. Was this about to succeed? Another silhouette flew across the sky. Elder Wanzheng instantly felt as if he had been hit by a bucket of cold water. It seemed that the situation was worse than expected. His brows were tightly knitted together as he stared at Chu Luiyue and the pill in front of her. He did not blink, and his heart was beating rapidly. At this moment, time seemed to pass exceptionally slowly. The medicinal fragrance of the pill was getting stronger. Chu Luiyue held her breath and activated the force in her body. It transformed into flames and surged out crazily. Buzz! A strong wave of energy circulated in the cauldron. Chu Luiyue's heart calmed down. The pill was about to be formed. She slammed her hand on the cauldron. The flame exploded. The pill in the middle became rounder and rounder. Lines and lines began to appear clearly on the surface. Chu Luiyue's lips were already a little pale. To the current her, it was indeed a little difficult to concoct a 9th-grade medicinal pill. After this round of refining, she had basically used up all her strength. In addition, she had already failed twice before, so she had even less energy left. Therefore, this pill was really hard to come by. Waves of weakness assaulted her, almost making her legs go soft. She bit the tip of her tongue and used the sharp pain to force herself to be clear-headed. The faint smell of blood spread between her lips and teeth. However, Chu Luiwei did not care about that at this moment. As long as she could successfully refine the pill, Elder Wanzheng's promise would be fulfilled. Thinking of this, she used all her strength to send the last bit of strength in her body into the cauldron and merged it with the flame. The pill suddenly flew up. It seemed to want to escape. Chu Luiwei clenched her teeth and controlled it. As long as she could hold on a little longer, this pill would— Wanzheng! Why are you still here? Feng Zhou is already in a mess. An anxious voice suddenly sounded. It was Elder Hua Feng who had rushed over. That thing is now on Rongxiu, and it's being besieged by them. Bang! An explosive sound came from Chu Luiwei's cauldron. Black ashes scattered in all directions. A thick burnt smell filled the air. Chu Luiwei's pill was destroyed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1188. This explosion successfully attracted Elder Hua Feng's attention to Chu Luiwei's existence. The main reason was that things happened too quickly. He was so anxious that he directly spoke when he saw Elder Wanzheng. He didn't see that Chu Luiwei was beside him. The scene fell silent. Only the smell of burnt flesh spread out, indicating what had just happened. Chu Luiwei looked at the extinguished medicinal cauldron in front of her with a heavy gaze. The inside and the edges were all black. Just a step away, even the lines on the cauldron were about to be drawn. Her hands slowly clenched. The atmosphere became tense and subtle. Only then did Elder Hua Feng realize that he seemed to have done something wrong. He opened his mouth and looked at Elder Wanzheng nervously. Did I come at the wrong time? Elder Wanzheng glanced at him faintly. Was there a need to ask? That kid was about to succeed just now. He had been suppressing himself and patiently waiting for Chu Yu to successfully refine a 9th-grade medicinal pill. But now, all his efforts were in vain. Chu Yu? Elder Hua Feng also felt a little embarrassed. Just as he was about to explain, he saw that the young man had already turned around. His usually delicate and gentle face no longer had the usual smile. Instead, there was an inexplicable coldness. Elder Hua Feng. The young man said coldly. Elder Hua Feng's heart trembled inexplicably as he subconsciously responded. Sigh. You just said that Feng Zhou is in chaos? Rongxiu? Senior brother Rongxiu and the others are being besieged? Yes. Why do you ask this? Elder Hua Feng originally thought that she was angry because the pill was destroyed and wanted to argue with him. He didn't expect that she would ask this question. He didn't think much and nodded. But after saying that, he thought that it wasn't good to let the students know about this matter, so he added, but don't worry, we're going over now. There won't be any big problems. As he said that, he looked at Elder Wanzheng and gave him a look. Elder Wanzheng sighed in his heart. Chu Yu, you go back first. As for the matters outside, we will take care of them. Chu Luiwei narrowed his eyes. If the matter could be resolved so easily, Elder Hua Feng wouldn't have been so nervous when he came, and he wouldn't have said such words. Now, all these were just to comfort her. However, she did not reveal these thoughts. She only pretended to believe him and let out a sigh of relief. That's good. Actually, Master wanted to leave just now, but I was delayed because I was refining pills. She looked at Elder Wanzheng. Master, you should hurry up and take a look with Elder Hua Feng. Elder Wanzheng sighed. All right, it's a pity that your pill today could have been completed. Chu Luiwei smiled. This student has already grasped the knack of it. Sooner or later, I will succeed. You don't have to worry. Your previous promise still stands, right? Elder Wanzheng saw that she had a good attitude and didn't blame the heavens for this failure. He was even more impressed. Of course it still counts. Moreover, Elder Hua Feng is partly responsible for today's matter. In the future, he will give you some points as compensation. Elder Hua Feng didn't know what the master and disciple were up to, but it seemed to be just giving points. It wasn't a big deal, so he immediately agreed. That's right. I will definitely compensate you when I come back. The smile on Chu Liyue's lips deepened as she bowed respectfully. Then the student won't delay master any longer. I will take my leave first. Elder Wan Zheng thought that she wanted to go back and think about refining pills, so he agreed directly. Thinking that there were still some troublesome matters outside that had not been dealt with, the two elders quickly left. Soon, only Chu Liyue was left on the mountain. When the two elders disappeared, the smile on Chu Liyue's face gradually disappeared. There seemed to be a dark tide surging in her black jade-like eyes. Fangzhou City? Someone actually dared to come here and look for trouble with Lingxiao College? The key was, what is that thing? Because it was on Rongxiu, so Rongxiu's situation wasn't optimistic? She turned around and walked down the mountain. Fangzhou. In mid-air, several groups of people were in a stalemate. Rongxiu stood in the middle, surrounded by people from the Golden Wing sect and other sections. On the outer layer, there was Elder Shu Feng and the others, as well as the people from Lingxiao College who were rushing over. And at this time, the number of people was still increasing. In the city below, countless people raised their heads to watch, their hearts and minds trembling. Who would have thought that they would be able to see such a scene in Fangzhou City outside Lingxiao College? Those people in the sky were all experts from the top sects in the Divine Ruins world. And now, the focus of their battle was obviously Rongxiu. Elder Shu Feng and the others had ugly expressions. According to the previous plan, as long as they activated the Xian formation, they could directly create a teleportation array and return to the college directly. They didn't expect these people to follow them here like maggots. Jin Lei and the others were not in a good mood either. They wanted to take down Rongxiu in Fangzhou City as soon as possible and take back the thing. Who knew that Rongxiu's fighting strength was so strong that he had dragged it out until now? More and more people came out of Lingxiao College and gathered here. If this continued, their situation would only get worse. They had to end the battle quickly. But both sides were afraid, so they were in an awkward situation. Finally, Jin Lei raised the axe in his hand and thunder roared under his feet. He went straight for Rongxiu. Everyone attacked together. Finish him. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1189. Inside Lingxiao College, many elders gathered together and headed to Fangzhou together. The atmosphere in the entire academy quietly became tense. When Chu Liyue rushed to the entrance of the college, she saw that many students had already gathered around the Qingming Square. Obviously, they already knew that something was going on outside. Chu Liyue slowed down her footsteps and blended into the crowd, so she didn't stand out. Many students were whispering to each other. Have you heard? Something seems to have happened outside. Someone seems to have come to Fangzhou to cause trouble? I heard that Elder Shu Feng and the others are now fighting with them outside. Some of the elders in the college have also rushed over. Who exactly is it that has the guts to actually barge into our academy? It seems that there are people from the Golden Wing sect. They have never interacted with our college and are extremely arrogant just because they are powerful. And this time, it seems that they are trying to steal something. Other than that, a few other sects have joined forces. Even if they want to steal something, they don't have to kill their way here, right? Aren't they just looking for trouble? Do they really think that our college is a pushover? It seems that they are after an extremely precious treasure. Previously, senior brother Rongxiu and the others came back to retrieve this item for the college. Just now, I accidentally heard an elder say that because of this item, senior brother Rongxiu was besieged by them. I don't know how he is now. After all, they are just outside our college. We can't really let them succeed, right? All kinds of discussions entered Chu Liyue's ears, causing her to become more and more agitated. Her brows were tightly knitted together. It turned out that Lingxiao College had sent a letter to Rong Xiu to talk about this matter. Rong Xiu had never mentioned it, so she didn't ask in detail. After all, there were so many people moving together, and there were many elders in the college. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any danger. But now, Rong Xiu was clearly in danger. Her heart was filled with anxiety, but she could only console herself. After all, they had already arrived at Fangzhou City, right next to the academy. Even if they really encountered danger, they would still have the support of so many elders from the academy. Since Elder Huafeng and the others had already rushed over, they should be able to make it in time. More and more students gathered around. The originally quiet Qingming Square became noisy. Chu Liwei calmly walked in that direction while thinking about how to quietly go out and take a look. Although the academy's barrier was heavily guarded, knowing that Rong Xiu was in danger, she couldn't help but worry. Chu Yu. A familiar voice came from the side. Chu Liwei frowned and stood still. When he raised his head, his expression had returned to normal. Zhuoxing, Shishir, why are you here? In addition to these two people, Luo Yanming was also beside them. The cultivation of these three people was different, so it was rare to see them together. Zhuoxing winked. Why do you think we're here? Of course it's the same as you. Luo Shishir patiently explained. We were originally cultivating with Master, but something happened at the last minute. Master left, so we came here. We just happened to meet fifth brother. The master she was talking about was Elder Wensi. Chu Liwei nodded. I was refining medicine just now, and Elder Huafeng came over and called Master to leave together. In fact, many students were in this situation. Therefore, Luo Shishir and the others didn't think much of Chu Liwei's explanation. Did you hear what those people said just now? Zhuoxing asked mysteriously. How dare they chase us to Fangzhou to rob us? Are they crazy? Luo Yanming, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. The Golden Wing sect is tyrannical. Although they are also a first-class family, their inherited cultivation method is very domineering. In the sect, from the sect master to the disciples, their combat strength is extremely strong, so they have always been very arrogant. It's not surprising that they would do such a thing. People die for wealth, and birds die for food. The item that could make Lingxiao College send out so many elders and students was definitely not an ordinary item. It was obvious that it would arouse the jealousy of outsiders. Moreover, the other party seemed to be the joint forces of several sects, so they were naturally not afraid. As long as they finish the battle quickly and don't stay here for too long, it won't be a big problem. Zhuoxing looked at him strangely. Yanming, how do you know so much? Luo Yanming was silent for a moment. Master said a few more words before he left. Elder Huafeng had a carefree personality. After hearing the news, he was very shocked and didn't bother to hide it. As he spoke, Luo Yanming and the others beside him heard most of it. The few of them, Chu Liwei recalled the situation just now and mourned for the 9th grade pill that he should have successfully refined. Elder Huafeng is sometimes in a hurry. Dong. A low and melodious sound of a bell rang out. It came from the Donghuang bell tower. The square quickly quietened down, and everyone looked up. Elder Bo Yen stood upstairs with one hand behind his back. His hair was white, and his expression was calm. There's a small accident outside the school, but it will be resolved soon. Everyone, go back first and cultivate in peace. A deep and powerful voice spread out majestically. It was gentle and clear in everyone's ears, making them unconsciously calm down. Originally, some of the students were still worried and uneasy, but after hearing Elder Bo Yan's words, they gradually calmed down. Actually, thinking about it carefully, this was Lingxiao College's territory after all. Could they really let outsiders come and behave atrociously? The elders had seen all kinds of storms and waves, so it was naturally not a problem for them to deal with these problems. However, at this moment, a woman's voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. Elder Bo Yen, as a member of the school, the safety of the school is closely related to us. Therefore, Ziyuan requests to go out and fight. In the quiet square, this voice was particularly abrupt, and everyone heard it clearly. Countless pairs of eyes looked towards the source of the voice. It was the person standing behind the crowd, Jianghu. At that moment, Liang Xiaoxiao and the others were standing behind her. However, the words that came out of her mouth still attracted everyone's attention. Elder Bo Yan smiled. I've already said that there's only a small problem. The school has already sent out a few elders to deal with it. You can just stay in the school without worry. Jiang Juan pursed her lips, and her face was full of worry. But Senior Rong Xiu, Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. She, the official princess consort, had yet to speak, but Jiang Jiwan was so proactive. She really didn't know whether to praise her for her perseverance or for her stubbornness. Jiang Jiwan's behavior might be seen as infatuation in some people's eyes, but in Elder Bo Yan's eyes, it was a little immature. His expression was a little cold, and he asked indifferently, "Are you doubting Rong Xiu's ability, or doubting the abilities of the elders in the school?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.